All right, so we're gonna make a bottle. So I've already started, since you already know how to roll out slabs. So I'm making this out of slabs. So I rolled out a slab, wrapped it around this form. All right, it has one seam right here. Now I gotta make a base for it to get it on there. So all these slabs that I have rolled out won't fit, but if I take this, put these together. Take a little roller. Fill out that seam a little. All right, so now I'm gonna take this base, this pot. I want to put it as close as I can to an edge, so I don't really have enough to save anyway. But if you have a big slab and you put the base in the middle, then you waste all that clay and all that energy going into making the slab. So you want to put it as far away from the center as you can, like on an edge, so you can use more of the slab that's left over. This one isn't going to have much just because it's small anyway. But with whatever you draw on clay with, just trace. I can cut this a little bit larger, but not much, because I want a little bit of clay to wrap up onto the wall. So I'm really going about 1/8 of an inch outside. Attach the two to score. Score the bottom. Slip. So even if you don't have like some kind of form to use, you can still do this. If you let the clay get stiffer, then it should be easy enough to make the shape of the bottle that you want. Just put a little pressure. I haven't pushed down. I don't want to push down on the can. So if you use something that has a hole in it, right? And you're pushing down, you're gonna end up cutting a hole in your base. So you don't want to do that. So I'm holding the clay part, right? I'm pushing the clay down. See how it comes off? Right? Just push it. Now I'm going to take my finger, start to push some of that clay up onto the wall. And then I'll do more to it to get it to stay. So I can take this, and if I have something that I can roll over that, or I can just take my finger and put some pressure right on the edge, because that's where the clay is. I'm going to undo the paper. Well, I'll leave that in there for a second. So I'm going to take my rib, or card, whatever it is. I think I need to move this off the paper though. Just so I can get it, and you can see better. So I'm just curving the card enough so that it sort of matches the curve of the pot, and work my way around. And I'm gonna cut more off later, so I'm not too worried about how it looks. I just want that seam to go away. And so you'll have a strong joint there. Take your time, make sure you get it right. I like to keep a little bit of water on the rib. It just kind of glides over that clay and makes everything smoother. So now the base is attached to the wall. So now while this form's still in here, I can do some stuff to the outside. I want to make it kind of loose and give it some design work. This is not something you have to do. This is just a choice that I'm making to do. All right, so I'm going to roll it. I don't want it to be straight. And it makes a nice little design like that, right? Again, this is something loose. This is something that I want to be loose. If you don't want, this is not something that's required for you to make a bottle. It's design. Now you just undo the paper and reach in. It's gonna be a little tight. That's where I need 4 hands. Sometimes you just gotta twist it out. So I made the slab earlier, so it kind of shrunk a little bit. Now it's just coming free. There we go. So I didn't attach that paper to this can, right? I didn't tape it on there because if you can't separate the can from the paper, then it would be really hard to take this apart. All right, so now I can go in here. I want to be careful how I pick this up and move it around because it doesn't have the form in there and it's still relatively wet clay. But I can go in right now and sort of smooth out the seam that's on the inside. It's really on there pretty good, so I'm not gonna worry about it too much. I like how it looks. If there's any gaps or anything, this is when you would fill it in. All right, so I'm gonna move this over. Now I need to make the top because I'm gonna close this up because the bottle has, all bottles have some kind of shoulder, right? So this part of the pot is the shoulder. So I want to close that up and completely trap air inside there. And if I do that, the pot will hold up better, and then I can make the bottleneck and attach that, and it'll be a bottle. This one's not going to be big enough. I'm going to make this a little bit thinner. All right, so this clay is still soft. I'll roll this up. So I could close this up flat, right? But I don't really like that because for a shoulder, I want the bottle to have some curve to it, right? I don't want it to just be flat. If you want it flat, if that's the design of your bottle, that's fine. But I like the idea of like if you were gonna pour something out of a bottle, it's got a curve to it that leads to the spout. So you want to make a dome shape. So what I'm gonna do is use the same can. I'm gonna get some paper, tuck it in like that. Right, so now I have this dome shape that I can make my pot out of. So what I want to do is just kind of lift the edges and start pushing down. Work all the way around the can. Again, if you don't have a form, you can still do this. You can use the pot itself as a form and make the dome, but you still want to use paper because you don't want it to stick onto the clay. So once I start to have that depression in there, now I'm going to take another rib. I'm just using one with a curve, but you can use whatever you got. You can use your fingers and really, as long as you keep, kind of curve your finger and smooth it out, it'll certainly work. I'm going to use this one because it has a curve on it. put a little water on there. Keep it smooth. I'm just going to push towards the edge of the form because I want that one part to stay nice and round. I can kind of see the line form right here where the can is. Work down into the center. You can stretch the clay pretty good like this. If it's too thin, I mean, it's going to break. But you don't want it super thick either. This is a light part of the pot because it's going on the top. It leaves a few tool marks in there, but I'm not really worried about it because it's going to be closed up and nobody is ever going to see that. Alright, so now you can see my dome. What I want to do right now is cut away from it close to the can. So whatever knife you have, I'm gonna start with like a rough cut and just go. I'm not really worried too much about the shape yet. And I'll get closer and more direct as I go. All right, so now I can use the edge of the can. So I'm going to push this down because that can has a flat part on it. And that flat part, the outside edge of that flat part is what's going to match up with my pot over here. So I can leave, when I cut this clay more, I can leave a little bit extra, just like I did on the bottom, to pull down onto the wall so it stays better. So I want this part pretty flat. The only thing now, the paper that kind of sticks out there is you have to kind of watch how you cut because it'll throw you off a little bit. And again, this cut doesn't have to be perfect. I'm gonna end up cleaning some stuff off of it. But I want it pretty close. I've got enough clay out there that'll be good. Push this out a little more. So I'm just kind of pinching that rim just so it hangs out a little more. And now because this clay is wet, I can't immediately stick it on the pot and because my dome will collapse. So I'm gonna have to get it drier. Now if I have nice sunshine outside, I can put it outside for a few minutes and get it dry. But I don't have that today, or the time to do it, so I'll get something else. If you have a hair dryer, that'll work. Clean this up one more time. All right. So hair dryers work great, but this torch works a lot better. It's a lot more fun. Get this paper up there. Don't do this in your house. So now I'm just kind of going around inside that dome. I don't want to hit the paper on the outside of the can. It's a bad idea. But I'm also not going around these edges. I want the edges to stay soft so I can attach it. I'm just staying on the inside of this dome. That's about all it'll take. See how it goes. All right, so now I have, move this over. Sure it's still holding its shape. Now my dome will stay, make sure it's gonna fit. All right, so I'm gonna stretch it out a little more, put it back in there. I'm just working some of this clay out. Now I'm gonna score this. And I mean, I like working with slabs to do this because I can get the forms that I want better, and they're cleaner. They're not as loose as like coils. All right, so that's what. So I can push the edge a little closer to where my dome edge is and start to push down on the rim. I'm just getting it matched up. Sort of seal it down with my fingers. So I'm just kind of working this edge back towards the wall. So I'm holding my finger at an angle and pushing down towards the wall. So now that's gonna hold its form better because there's air trapped in there, so I can move this around a little more. Just still be careful like how you pick up the pot. So you just want to feel the pot and just enough pressure to pick it up to move it around. So if you smack it, it's gonna collapse. Well, let's try this. So I'm gonna come around a little bit, work that edge down more with the rib. Some tears off, it's okay. So everything I'm doing, like it always starts a little rough, and then you work your way to where it's smoother. So that's starting to get pretty smooth. Now I'm going to take a sponge. I'm sure it's kind of just damp, not super wet. I'm going to separate my fingers and let the sponge kind of ride in between my fingers and work that edge down a little more. Clean up some of that scrap that was left. So my idea to make this bottle, I set it up so I had a lower, wider form to use because I wanted a shorter, fatter bottle instead of like tall and skinny. So you set your slab up and make the slab to fit what your idea is. So if you wanted it tall and skinny,